Good evening. This is our scheduled meeting for the CPC Community Preservation Committee for July 28th, 2021. I am the chair, Peter Pingator. We are convening tonight via Zoom, and in light of that, I will be largely reading from a script, which allows us to conduct this meeting by Zoom rather than assembled in one place. As an initial matter, I'll ask each of the members to announce your name, or actually I will call your name and you can respond in the affirmative. For the benefit of our newest member, Ms. McKnight, it would be helpful, and she pointed this out, and I think it would be helpful if you note your appointing authority. That is what constituent group or interest group you represent, or what group or what entity appointed you to the position. Okay, so, and I go roughly in alphabetical order. Joe Barnes. Joe, you have to take off mute.
Sorry. Welcome, Gene. Joe Barnes. I am a select board appointee.
Okay. Artie Crocker.
Yeah, Artie Crocker here. I'm from the Conservation Commission.
And Chris Gersel.
Hi, Gene. This is Chris Gersel representing the Park and Rec Commission.
Okay. I'll note that Penny Kirk, who's not here tonight, represents the Needham Housing Authority. Bob Dermody, who is also not here tonight, was appointed by the Select Board, I believe. And now Laura Dorfman.
Hi, Jean. I'm an appointee by the Historical Commission.
And Rick Zimbo.
Hi there, folks. Sorry for getting on late, but I had a problem with my computer. I'm on my iPad, which kind of makes things weird, but where are we and what are we doing? I'm here.
Okay, so here we're just opening the meeting now. And I'm calling a roll call. And so I was going to ask everyone, I was calling your name, asking you to state in the affirmative that you're present. And then for the benefit of Jean McKnight, tell us who appointed you or what constituent group you represent.
Yeah, sure. Hi, Jean. I'm here at the appointment of the moderator.
Okay, and that's Rick Zimbo. And I am Peter Pingator, I'm the chair, and I am here by appointment of the moderator as well. Now, this is a Zoom meeting. It's being conducted remotely based on the governor's executive order, which has been continued by legislative act. The original order was of March 12th, 2020, based on our current COVID-19 outbreak. In order to mitigate the transmission of the virus, we have been advised and directed by the Commonwealth to suspend public gatherings. And as such, the governor's order suspends the requirement of the open meeting law to have all meetings in a publicly accessible physical location. Further, all members of the public bodies are allowed and encouraged to participate remotely, as we are doing. The order allows public bodies to meet entirely remotely, so long as reasonable public access is afforded so that the public can follow along with the deliberations of the meeting. Ensuring public access does not ensure public participation. Unless such participation is required by law, this meeting will not feature public comment. We're convening by Zoom app, the address being posted along with a notice of the meeting on our town website. Please note the meeting is being recorded and that some attendees are participating by video conference. So be aware that other folks may be able to see you, and take care not to screen share your computer with anything you don't want to share. All of the materials that you need, other than what we may share by screen share, have been provided to you and have been posted on the town website. And we're going to turn to our first agenda item. I will introduce the item and any speaker on the item, and then I'll ask for comment. We'll go in alphabetical order, and be careful, and let's just note that whoever is speaking, to put it on the record so that we have a clean record, whoever it is that is speaking. So mute your phone when you're not speaking or your computer. And of course, speak clearly and loudly. And just note, every vote we take tonight will be by roll call vote. Okay. So first item is chairman's updates. I think the update that we have, or two updates. One is that we are meeting, the joint meeting of Finance Committee, Select Board, and representatives of the school committee and other stakeholders concerning capital expenditures for the schools, which includes what we do with Emory Grover. That meeting that was originally scheduled for the 26th of July. I had that wrong. It was 1 week prior to this, was delayed. And so we're not going to have that meeting until next week. Do you recall the date, Rick, when that meeting is scheduled for? But it's going to be after this meeting. And so as a result, we don't have any update to provide to you other than what we provided in our prior meeting, which is that as near as we could tell, the economic models that they're building are looking at CPC contributing approximately $6 million or $6 million to the design and construction and rehabilitation of Emory Grover. For your benefit, Gene, that's kind of the number that we kind of staked out in order to develop some economic models for what we could do to sustain our mission as CPC. So that number hasn't wavered. And we think that that's a good place to go. We've worked pretty closely with Dave Davison in arriving at that number and built some economic models around that, okay? But there's more to come on that. And then the second announcement is that we have a new member, and it's Jean McKnight. Jean.
Hello, I'm a member of the planning board. I've been a member of the planning board for about 15 years, and I just stopped being the chair. And so the chair, Paul Alpert, who has served with you, said, will somebody volunteer to be on the Community Preservation Committee? So I raised my hand because I'm very interested in all of the functions of the committee. Always interested in historic preservation, affordable housing, open space. I won't go into detail on my background, but it's a real pleasure to serve on this committee. I really look forward to it.
I personally am really glad that you're here. I know how the level of your participation in town and so and the expertise that you have professionally, it's going to be great for our committee. So I'm really excited that you're here. I really am. So thank you for taking the appointment and joining the committee. So I think we take our work seriously. We don't take ourselves too seriously, right? Except for me occasionally.
But just catching up,
Yeah.
did you say we're having another meeting next week?
No, I'm sorry, Jean. There's going to be we have two participants on this. I'll call it joint. Let's call it joint working finance committee, for lack of a better term. And the two participants from CPC are on that committee. One is Rick Zambone, and the other is me. And that committee has met twice so far. And Rick and I have, and the first meeting didn't have much at all to do with us or Emory Grover. The second meeting, they actually started to dig in a little more deeply and coming up with various kinds of proposals for funding and bringing online two schools and an administration building over the next 17 years, as near as I can tell. So that implicated CPC, because we were talking about Emory Grover and we're talking about how to finance it. And so Rick and I joined at that meeting. There was another meeting that was scheduled for, let's call it mid-July. I just don't have my calendar in front of me. That meeting was adjourned and kicked over until the next, I think next week, in early August at least. And
It's
so
next Thursday, Peter.
there you go, next Thursday. Thanks, Rick. And so we'll have what we've wanted to do, we go to these meetings, we come back and we do a readout for the committee. Okay, and so we'll have a readout for you on that meeting at our August CPC meeting, which is scheduled for August 25th. The main purpose for us meeting during the summer months was because we had anticipated that there would be a request for funding through CPC of the design and the construction of and the rehabilitation in connection with the rehabilitation of Emery Grover for our October town meeting. So the request is going to be taken out of cycle because normally we take in the applications in January or December, and they all go and we deal with them at our annual town meeting. So this request is going to be taken out of cycle, and so we wanted to be prepared for it. And so we were meeting through the course of the summer, and we loaded up the agenda with the summer work with 3 items, and those are the 3 items that are on the agenda for this evening. I was just trying to catch you up a little bit.
Yes, I appreciate it. Thank you.
And then the other thing, just as a sidebar, is that Kristen usually has a nice packet of materials. She probably has already given those to you, but it's our CPC plan, the statute, the form application, and so other kind of resource materials that are worth reading because I mean we rely on those materials in assessing the applications. Just okay.
Yes, I have Christian did send me the community preservation plan. That's the subject of
That's it.
our meeting tonight. I'm generally familiar with the statute, but it'd be good to review a copy and the application I should review. I haven't done that yet, though.
Okay. Okay. Joe Barnes.
Just a question before we get into tonight's matters, and a question for Kristen. Has Karis or anybody established a schedule for the work that has been approved from our last year's applications? Have they established any kind of a time frame on when these projects will begin?
The ones that were approved in May?
Yes.
Not to my knowledge. The proponents are all told that they have funding, and then they draw down basically from invoices. So for the town, if it's a town project, we just pay the invoice. The department that it's assigned to pays off the invoice off of the project, off the capital project number.
And you're not aware of any of them having started yet?
From this last May, I'm drawing complete blank because the churches were actually October, and those I saw some of the CP3 money coming through for that.
Okay.
But I can't even think of what projects we did have. I apologize.
That's all right. That may be.
So Joe, that kind of leads to one of the issues that Laura brought up last year, which was when, kind of coming from her banker perspective, right, that she wanted some sort of she wanted to institutionalize periodic updates from the recipients of the grants. And so I don't know how we can do that, but and we all kind of agree that that's a good idea. And in fact, our plan calls for it. So I just don't know how to do it on the town side, and whether we do it 30 days, 60 days, 90 days, quarterly may appear to be appropriate. Laura, you may have an opinion on that.
I was just wondering if we could reach out, or someone from our committee could reach out to the proponents, maybe in the fall, and just ask for a status. Is that something we could do?
I think it probably would come from the town side, and if you want to make it as simple as fall, form email to the recipients, please provide us with a status report. Easy, right?
I feel like we would get it done faster and without everything else. I don't mean that as to be disparaging, but they have so many other things to do, right?
Okay, I that's fine too. If you want to, I don't know that that's really is the role of the committee, but I'm also trying to make it really simple.
But it's in our plan, right? So
I'm saying it's not the role of the committee members. That's all. That's my only point.
yeah.
Mr. Chair, I can talk to Cecilia after and see. Cecilia and I are more or less, we're notified when funding is coming out, but where they are, if they're getting bid documents. I mean, Cecilia will probably know anything that's DPW related off cuff because she writes the bid documents for that. So she'd probably be able to give a better status update if she was here for many of the town projects that were approved. Outside of town, they have to submit through some invoicing and process through either Cecilia or I for the most part. And therefore we would know where they were with the project. I just don't have that for this meeting, and I can talk to her about what she would like to maybe present next time.
All right, that sounds good. All right, any other hands up on the two chairmen's updates? Okay. All right, so now we'll turn to, so I think that we've taken a little bit out of order, but I think let's while we're on the subject of Emery Grover, that's the update that I have. Rick is another, obviously the other representative on the committee. I don't know if Rick has anything else to add to that, because I'm basically saying stay tuned for next month, but if Rick has other information he wants to share, Rick, why don't you provide that to us now?
Peter, I don't. The only other piece of information is there was a rather large financial model that was sent out to everyone. I personally haven't opened it yet because it's so big, but that's going to be part of the discussion that we have at the meeting. So it's so big that it couldn't be transmitted via the normal email process, and you have to log on and get it through the website. So at some point in time, maybe while I'm sitting on the beach on vacation, I might take a look at it, but until that point in time, I'm reluctant to open it yet. But that it has been done, and that will be the primary subject of the next meeting.
Okay, thank you. All right, so our next item would be an update on the revisions to the Needham CPC plan. And I have two documents that I wanted to share with you. Let me just open by saying that I think when we last met, I talked to you about that I had reviewed other plans from other towns. I actually did suggest that we should use some of our administrative money to retain a consultant to work with our plan. I went back and read and reread our plan, compared it to the others that I had seen, and I realized that I like our plan. I think that it needs updating, and what I've done is I've gone through. I think really the updates need to be beginning at pages 10 through 20. And those are the sections that, first of all, the first section is the general factors for consideration and whether or not we fund or don't fund. And those are on page 10. I've highlighted those, and that's kind of the general to the CPC. We're going to look at those at some point in this process, which I'll show you. I have a plan for how we can manage the process. But that's really those general factors are something that just fall within the scope of what this committee does and what we'll do during the course of the process. But to give a better flavor for what we really need to be doing, there are sections, as you know, in the plan that address each of the constituent groups that we fund. Beginning with open space and recreation. So, Kristen, can you screen share that? So this is beginning on page 12 of the plan, and I've over highlighted, but it's really for illustrative purposes to show you how we doing. Let's see. So let's go to page 12. Okay. So if you look at page 12, I highlighted and I put some little sticky notes. But what we have is that opening paragraph really what was written in 2000, I believe. So we're talking about significant residential development over the last 5 years. it probably still holds true. But we also have some data in the second paragraph. All this was done when the plan was first put together. I don't think it was amended in 2014 when we had our final amendment, but it's really just kind of, is that data correct and is it accurate? But more importantly, if we go down to like open space goals, we have, as my recollection is, as an example, we have, I think the question that I have when I read that is this consistent with our tie and bond survey that was done by Park and Rec concerning what our goals should be for using our open space and our recreational space. And so my proposal would be, and you'll see that it kind of works, there's a theme here, which is, should we consult with the interest holders for an update? And is this consistent with the tie and bond survey? So open space and recreation, I think would be, obviously we would want to talk to Park and Rec. We would want to talk to, I guess, conservation, conservation, and get those their interest, their data, and what they believe the open space goals should be. And then what we would follow up with is, once we get that information, it may impact the second section, which is what are our open space factors for consideration? Because you could see that those necessarily involve what the goals are. So factors are going to match up with goals. So if the factors change, if the goals change, the factors are going to change. Okay. You can see paragraph D under recreation resources and needs. We're talking about population growth between 1990 and 2000. Again, this is stale data. We should be updating that. That seems like something that our planning department and Park and Rec would have some information and would want to provide us with some updated information. Recreation goals, same thing. What I looked at that was, well, how does that work with our tie and bond survey, and where's that survey at? And that probably should affect what the recreation goals are that are listed in CPC, and then affect what our factors are in considering these applications. Okay, and it kind of follows up. Let's go to the next one. Here we have community housing. You can see the third paragraph really talks a lot about affordable housing. Our goals in the fifth paragraph down have to do with reaching our 10% under 40B as a minimum, but I think that our goals may have changed in light of the fact that we've reached 10%, and I think that our public interest in what we want to do in terms of creating affordable housing may be different than as represented in that paragraph. So I think, again, input from interest holders on what our goals should be in terms of developing affordable housing, and then what our factors should be in considering various applications. So let's go through, let's go to the next one. This is historic. We've got 19 properties listed. We've had various applications where we don't see them listed on as part of the 19, but then the Historic Commission says that they have an interest. Perhaps they want to take a closer look. Maybe this list has changed. Maybe their list of priorities, when you scroll down a little bit further, maybe the list of priorities for the Historic Commission has also changed. This one is just one big bold paragraph, and one paragraph in a bullet point, and perhaps that's what they want, and that's satisfactory, but we should at least be taking a closer look at it. And then from there, we can adjust our factors for consideration. So really, what I think we need to do is, my plan would be that we should be working with these various constituent groups. And actually, why don't we do this? Because can we go to our next, where we go from here, and then we'll take all questions on both documents. So there's another document, which is a plan for what we do. And I'm sorry, Rick, that it's not in PowerPoint. You've shown me up. So I think first step is probably a resolution authorizing the liaisons, we probably would name 2 people to confer with planning, conservation, historical commission, select board, and town manager regarding the amendments to Needham CPA, or rather the need to amend, or at least examine the need to amend. And then I think the way to efficiently deal with it is to have our liaisons work, the 2 liaisons work with the representatives of the CPC who are appointed to each of the committees. So for example, Laura Dorfman, Historical Commission, we would want to have Laura make the initial communication with the Historic Commission and have them examine the kind of narrow question of what are your goals? And how do you want those to change? How would that change of the CPC plan? Do you want to update that? Do you have any input on what the factors should be that we should consider and funding historic preservation applications, and get that information back? And we would do the same thing with Planning Board, Park and Rec, Housing Authority. Kind of task our members to go back to their boards and say, look at this pretty narrow document. It's going to be a 1.5 pager for each entity. What do you want to do? What do you want to see for those goals? And what do you think the factors should be? And actually, I wouldn't, maybe it's too much, but I wouldn't mind having a representative from each of those entities come before the commission, similar to the way we manage our other applications, so that we can actually have some give and take. So some representative from the Historic Commission come in, make a presentation about what they think our goals should be, and in terms of historic preservation, and actually potentially have them do some of their own bullet point drafting. Okay. Rick, can I go? You want me to stop now, or
Just a quick question, Peter.
Sure.
Do we include something in here for a representative with respect to open space?
Yes, that was an oversight on my part. So it should be, the Conservation Commission.
Okay, fine. I just
No,
wanted to
that's
make
a
note of
good,
that.
it's a good, hold on. That's simply an oversight. I'm making a note of it. All right, that's a good catch. And so then we would have them come, and we could probably have one meeting where similar to what we do with our applications, we could have one meeting where each representative comes in and makes a presentation. And then from there, we would conference, and we would have to have we would be drafting our plan amendments. And that's kind of an open question that I want to get to in a second. And then once we have we're working on this process, I do think similar to the way we're obligated to do with respect to the applications themselves, we might as well conference with the Finance Committee and the Select Board, and then have a public hearing for input, and then vote on our plan amendments. We don't need to bring it to town meeting, but we can vote I believe that we can just vote as a committee to make the amendments. I could be wrong about that, but I think that would be the procedure. So my question, I have one question for the committee, but I'm sure you folks have plenty of them, which is the drafting. And it may be relatively easy, but is that something that we should have our planning department deal with? Is it something that we should have a consultant deal with? Is it something that our committee members should be dealing with? So that's kind of an open question about how we should deal with that. We do have money in our account for this kind of thing. I just don't know how we can, I don't know how to efficiently, if you will, plug someone in to do that kind of drafting, which may not be that heavy a lift, but that's kind of an open question. So I'm sorry, so make the full kind of presentation, and then we can actually start from square one if you'd like, go all the way back to the highlights if you want, but that's kind of would be my plan for how to deal with proposed amendments to the CPC plan. All right, so let's have some questions.
I have a question.
Sure, Jean.
On the first bullet point, named the name liaisons, are those to be members of this committee or
Those-
staff people of the town?
Those would be members of this committee.
Mhm.
So I've kind of jumped in on this. If you're volunteering to be one of the liaisons on the committee, then that would be,
Watch out for that.
that would be great, by the way. I thought about calling you up ahead of time, but then I thought, I don't really like to corrupt the process. So that's why I figured I would just ask you at the meeting. This fits really nicely into your expertise. But I know you have a lot to do. I know you're busy with the planning board. But if you would consider, we usually have we have teams of 2 on these projects. And so this would be a project that you and I would work on together. But really the committee, if you can see the way I've structured it, almost everybody on the committee is going to have a job to do because, Laura is going to talk to the Historic Commission and so Artie is going to be talking to the Conservation Commission and Chris is going to be talking to Park and Rec. So that would be one, if you want to think about it, that's fine. But that would be, probably just need a resolution authorizing me and some other person or to start the process of talking to, the select board and our planning department and Kate Fitzpatrick, our town manager, and say, this is kind of in the works. This is what we're thinking of doing. This is how the procedure is going to work. Okay.
Yes. So the first bullet point, when it talks about planning, conservation, historical, I think you're talking there about talking with the staff, I suppose. And there's certainly, for example, in planning on housing, you have Karen Sunderborg, who's just wonderful with the
Right.
statistics, and then of course Lee Newman, and I can interact with them on their input on some parts of the plan, and then when it comes to working with the planning board itself, like presenting something to the planning board, I feel as though that is my role as a member of the committee here as we go along. So I guess that's what I had in mind in volunteering, is to the extent staff input from the planning department is needed, I'd be glad to be the one interacting with the planning department staff. And, to the extent ideas should be brought before the whole planning board and input sought, I can do that too. Yeah.
Great. And obviously Karen would be really helpful on our community housing component, right?
Yes.
You did.
Okay, great. All right, so then that's a yes, you're in. I'm being the appointed, one of the 2 people as acting as the liaison on this project. Is that a yes?
Okay. Yes.
Okay, good. All right. So now let's, other questions.
Peter?
Yes. Guys,
It's Laura.
right.
I can't see everybody now because the document's still up. I don't know if you can still see me, but
I think you can scroll down. All right, there you go. Take the you can scroll down and see everyone, but yeah. All right, let's take the document down. Go ahead.
okay. So a couple of things. Happy to do it for the Historical Commission. Be the liaison. Just a couple things on the housing area. You had mentioned the Housing Authority. I'm wondering if the Housing Trust should be part of that, reach out. And also some updating relative to rental assistance and the emergency rental assistance that was provided. I think we should sort of somehow mention that possibility in that update. If we can. We don't really talk about that directly there.
We do talk about direct benefits, though. We do, and so but you're right. That's great. That should be something that's noted, that's a program that's available to the that's available for funding through CPA. Okay,
Yep, thank you. And then just two more quick things. The drafting of the document, as long as it's in Word format, I'm happy to do that. I don't think this is heavy lifting at all. I'm not a wizard, like maybe Kristen probably is, but I could certainly like take a shot at it and have somebody look at it. So that's an offer there. And then the application needs to be updated as I think. And I had sent Karis and Kristen a while ago when there was so much going on, my suggestions and redacted like a track changes document on that. And I'm happy to resend that out and to see if you think, I'm not sure everybody agrees with the changes I suggested, but I think you have to update that when you're doing the plan.
all right. We're gonna figure, I want to actually put in kind of the parking lot, this issue of using some of our money as potentially using some of our money to hire a consultant that may help us on the drafting. I mean, Laura, I appreciate you stepping up. I just don't view that necessarily as our role. And so, but that it's fine to volunteer.
Yeah.
But
Or- What about an intern?
well, all right, well, all right. That, you know what? Actually, you often get what you pay for in life. Okay, so.
That's why you don't want to use me.
No, I didn't mean, that was not what I meant, actually. Okay. All right, but that's a good idea. All right, Joe Barnes.
Peter, question on the process. As the liaisons reach out to their constituents and they get feedback on the current look of the CPC plan, and they get the feedback, the next step would be to combine those suggestions to us, do a little bit of wordsmithing or coming up with a draft, then bringing the select board in for their blessing or the finance committee to information. I don't know, do we need their support or do we need their approval or just more sharing of information?
I view it, I view it more as sharing of information.
Okay,
I don't think they don't, so that's what I view it as.
okay,
Okay.
thank you.
Yeah, but you've actually pointed out, Joe, how, why it is that it's a very organic process. And so that may be the role. Again, I'm pointing towards some role of some specially assigned staff person or some specially assigned consultant to kind of start to compile that information. But you're making an excellent point by pointing out how the procedure is going to look and how it's going to work. So, all right, other questions? All right, do you want to talk a little bit about timelines? Well, we could just do it. Well, actually, we may just want to plan in a kind of a 30-day segment, if you will. So my concern about, we're meeting in the summer, but I don't know that many other people are. Are the other committees meeting, and can we bring this to these committees in the next 30 days? Is that, what do you think, Jean? No? Okay.
I think as far as the planning board goes, we have one meeting in August, and
Okay.
that meeting is going, this 1688 Central Avenue daycare center. The
Yep.
hearing is continued, and it's going to be very time consuming. And that's our only meeting. I don't think we're going to talk about anything on
All
this.
Let's do it in bite-sized pieces. Let's we'll have a resolution. Jean and I you can authorize us to start speaking about this to the staff and, our town manager and our select, okay, let's say it broadly. So that they know this is in the works and that we could speak with some authority rather than just, off the cuff, that we actually have some authority on behalf of the committee to inform them of this and start to get some information to them and from them. So why don't we just kind of set that as our immediate goal, and Jean and I can do work on that between now and the 25th. Do you think you can do that, Jean?
Peter, let me mention something. When you talked about working on this, I wasn't thinking there'd be any work to be done in August.
Okay, that's okay too.
I'll be on Cape Cod.
Oh, that's that's
all
all right
about-
too, because this is not, I mean, as long as we're getting this on the track,
Yeah,
we have a plan. If everyone likes this plan, then you know, it's pretty, we can just get it on the track and we could start our work in September. Okay,
yeah, that,
that's,
that makes more sense to me. I mean, I could send this draft, this prior plan to Karen Sunenberg and Lee and say, this is something we're going to be working on, just so they're aware of it. But
Okay.
I can't really do anything more than that till September.
okay, that's fine too. I want to make one last point, which was that I had brought up the fact in our last meeting that we should be looking to the degree that we can. One thing that's pretty obvious is with housing, we should be looking at that through the lens of what our Nuari goals are. Okay, so this could be a very easy and tangible accomplishment by CPC in terms of implementing our Nuari goals. Gene, that was actually one of the other reasons why I was going to ask you to be involved, because I know of your interest. I know that you've been involved in other advocacy groups that are kind of running parallel to the goals of Nuari. And I thought that would be just kind of a natural fit. You'd give voice to a lot of different constituent groups, but all of it working, hopefully, in alignment with the Nuari principles. So that's my one point. Okay, yes, go ahead.
And the planning board or the planning department is thinking of establishing a working group to focus this year on inclusionary zoning. Where in our town should we be encouraging multifamily housing where it isn't allowed now? How can we apply our requirement that a certain percentage of units in any multifamily housing new development be affordable? We're very much focusing on that this coming year. So it's time. It's certainly very timely. And when you talk about, I noticed that this has goals like ideas about where new multifamily housing and affordable housing should be developed. And that's what we're going to be talking about.
Great. That's good. All right. So now this is great. All right. All right. So those are my comments. And I guess what we would do is have a resolution. Any other comments or questions before I make the resolution and someone can second it? Artie, any comments, questions?
No.
No. Okay. Chris Gersel, comments or questions? No. Okay.
None.
Okay. All right. All right. So let's have the resolution will be authorizing our Gene McKnight and Peter Pingator to act as liaisons to confer with our planning department, Conservation Commission, Historic Commission, Select Board, and Town Manager regarding proposed amendments to the Needham CPC, Needham Community Preservation Plan. That would be good. Joe Barnes.
Before we continue, I've been
Actually, wait, there's a motion and then, so that's a motion. So the next one is a second and then we can have a discussion. Is that okay? All right, so that's my motion. So do I have a second?
Second.
Okay, now discussion. Joe Barnes.
Okay, discussion a little bit off of the topic. Rick Zambone has texted me asking that I ask Kristen to let him in.
Okay,
He must be offline or was dumped out.
so he must be, needs to be elevated too. Okay,
Yeah, can you do that, Kristen?
Done.
Thank you.
he's there. All right, so let's hear from Rick. Let's unmute him. Can we do that? All right, there's Rick. All right, good. Rick.
Peter, somehow I got dumped. My computer dumped me and I've been listening and unable to get back in. I
Okay,
did have-
so you have heard, you've heard everything?
Not everything, but I do have some comments.
Great.
You know, what a couple of the comments were, I'm not quite sure, I guess, how efficient it would be without having a consultant do a lot of the legwork.
Right.
I mean, you and Gene obviously have the capability, but the question becomes the time and the time associated with that. And I don't know how to go about what the best process would be to bring on a consultant to do a lot of the legwork, even so far as to act as a, as a liaison to pull this together. And I just think that and all of a sudden find this over, I comment on the number of items that you have on your list that need to be liaisoned, accomplished, public hearings, do this, do that, and confer with the select board and all these other things. But in the meantime, we've got to craft a document, and we've got to get some individual to do that. And I think we're going to be spending, as liaisons ourselves or as members of the committee, we're going to spend a lot of time conferring with the various parties. And we really need someone, and I don't think this is Kristen or Cecilia's job to do that. So I'm really suggesting that what we need to do is find a consultant, not, as you say, not heavy lifting, but someone who could do the writing, put it all together, point out areas that perhaps we need to expand on, and that would be just one comment. The other comment I have is that we did a lot of work with respect to affordable housing. We worked with, and I heard Jean mention Karen Sonnenberg. We worked with her and the Housing Authority in town. We also worked with the trust, the Affordable Housing Trust. That's what I meant with Karen and the Affordable Housing Trust. And then we also did some work with the Housing Authority. The Housing Authority is supposed to be coming forward with a plan to do some work. And what I don't want to do is I don't want to have us necessarily recreate the wheel. And this needs to be done. And I don't know how we go about doing this. But clearly, Lee Newman is a member of the Housing Trust. And I would expect, or hope anyways, that through her work and that of the planning board, they would utilize the Housing Trust. But I don't want to lose the Housing Authority's plan in this process. And so we need to make sure that we're somehow incorporating the Housing Authority's plan, because they had a pretty extensive one. And I don't want to lose sight of that, because that's where we went. One of the driving forces behind us allocating more money to the housing bucket. So I don't have any skin in the Housing Authority's game. Obviously, Penny Kirk does. And, perhaps she needs to bring forward from them where we are. The last we heard is they were proceeding, getting a consultant to get some additional funding and so on and so forth. I don't want us to lose momentum here in the process. And those are just my two comments.
Those are, all right, so those are excellent comments. Okay. I guess I'm really with you on the consultant. I just don't view, like, we have enough to do. Sometimes it's, for me, because of my obligations on work and family, et cetera, just kind of, getting this together for tonight is kind of the max that I could do during this last 30 days, just to be honest with you. So I don't know that it's our role to be doing this kind of drafting. And I think we have money, we have economic resources, we allocate it each year. We never spend it any year. We can use it to hire a consultant to do some work, some good work, and to help us on this. I mean, our job is to come up with this kind of stuff and to talk and confer, and someone else should be carrying the ball for us. And you're right, it shouldn't be our staff people. We know how much work that they have to do. That's why we have a budget. So I think that we need to find someone who's going to help us on that. I think our planning department would probably help us. Karen Sonnenberg would probably be able to help us to identify resources. Kristen Wright has her hand up. Kristen?
I do. While we do have the funding, it is open to a public process. So dependent on how much money this consultant will cost the town, it will need to have an RFQ, an RFP, and
Okay.
formal procurement process might be necessary depending on how much money is actually required. Over $10,000 may require a like 2-month process, just to give some idea about timeliness.
Yeah,
Okay,
My 2 cents into that, if I could, Mr. Chair, is I can't imagine us spending $10,000 on this. I mean, maybe we might, but also we're looking for a specialist in this particular area.
Right.
And we need to consult with our town's finance director on. We may not necessarily who has worked on these types of programs in the past. And we can get an estimate of what the scope of work is and what the cost would be. Then we may not have to go off the RFP.
all right. So why don't we do this?
That's
Let's-
something that they deal with.
So I think the resolution is broad enough, but we could amend it to note that we would, what we would be doing is interacting with those, making those departments aware of and getting their input with respect to our plan. And also to either, probably, we may want to note in there that we're also to confer with them concerning the retention of a consultant to assist us in our efforts.
Yes.
Okay, how's that? So Jean and I, we have a nice bite-sized piece. We're going to talk to a few people with the powers that be. We're going to tell them what we'd like to do. We're going to tell them what the problem is that we have. We're going to give them a proposed solution, which is in part, we'd like to hire someone. We have some money in the budget to do it. Can you point us in the right direction? Right?
Sounds good.
That's the motion now.
That's the motion now. So now the
And-
motion has been amended.
2 points of order, Mr. Chair.
Yes,
The first one was that you wanted to confer with Planning, Housing, Conservation, and the Select Board
and town manager.
and Park and Recreation as well, correct?
Oh, yeah, if I've dropped something, remember, I was moving with lightning speed there when I was drafting
okay.
this. So if I missed it, sorry.
And 2, in terms of getting a consultant, I mean, that is what Cecilia does during the day, and she's, I believe, reaching out and already worked with the CPA the CPA state governing body to see, and we can certainly reach out to other communities and find out those things. So we don't need to engage, I don't think, other boards and committees in that process necessarily.
Right.
That is a CPC function. It's not necessarily something that the boards and committees would necessarily need to. They can know, of course. I think you can let them know, but I don't think they have to. They don't have to have a resolution in order for this committee to move forward with hiring of a consultant if that is what this committee finds to be necessary.
Okay, so then let's strike the amendment. Let's go back to the first resolution. This is great. Kristen always helps me when I'm going way off the track. Okay, that's good. All right, so I'm going to withdraw the amendment. Now we're going to go back to the original resolution. I made the motion. Who made this? Who seconded it? Do we have that, Kristen?
I did.
Okay,
Chris Kurtz still did.
okay, good.
Oh,
Further discussion or comment?
What's
Okay.
the motion again, Peter?
Sure. Do you want to read it, Kristen, or you want me to read it?
I apologize for the vacuuming. Mr. Pignator moves that Gene McKnight and he be authorized to confer with the Planning Board, the Housing Authority, Conservation Committee, the Select Board, Town Manager's Office, and Park and Recreation Commission to discuss the portions of the CPA that they oversee and talk about the goals. I'm sorry, I'm reading my shorthand. Goals and points of interest for the committee, the CPC committee, moving forward.
All right, I think that we want to just talk about the process for proposed amendments, okay? And
Got
then
it.
we can also make it that we just want to contact representatives of each. So,
I think we missed the historical commission.
okay, let's put that, all right, okay,
And do we want to add the housing trust or no?
Jean, were you going to weigh in on this?
As to the Housing Trust, yeah, the funds have been appropriated for the use of the housing trust yet, or they would be in the future, perhaps.
Yeah, I mean, I think that it's pretty easy because if we contact the select board, we're contacting the housing trust because all members of the select board are on the housing trust.
Uh-huh.
And so this is really really what we're doing is this. We're putting them on notice that we're going through this process. These are the areas that we want each of these entities to start examining. You start looking at them and we were going to be working on our end as well. Right. And so we can tell them we're going to be working with a consultant. We're going to be working with each of the constituent groups in the months to come. Right. It's really putting everyone on notice, getting some feedback from them, getting this project on track. So, go ahead,
I
Jean.
guess I thought the initial bullet point had to do with interacting with staff in the departments.
Yes. Okay. That's all right. That's fine too. Am I
Moving on to the boards
I see.
themselves. You know,
Okay.
uh,
So, but I was thinking that if you were going to be talking to planning, you have a familiarity with those folks, and Karen Sonnenberg, also you have a familiarity with dealing with her and planning. And so from my end, it's, I have a familiarity of dealing with the select board. I feel comfortable talking to Kate Fitzpatrick. So now we've kind of gone with staff and we're going with, board, but is that okay with you? Am I doing something? Do you think that's inappropriate?
It's okay with me. I just want to, be sort of clear about first steps.
Right.
Who do we talk with first?
Right. No, you're right. I mean, I think certainly, Kate, I think you're right. Staff first.
Yeah.
But that's right. Let's focus on that. Staff first. All right.
Mr. Chair.
Yes.
Quick point. And so in the same way that Jean is a member of the planning board already, several of the committee members are also members of those outstanding boards. Artie's a member of the Conservation Commission, and Chris is a member of the Park and Rec, and Laura is a member of the Housing. Could it make more sense for each of the members of the committee to reach out to their boards and determine and have this conversation maybe in their next commission or board meeting, and bring back maybe first meeting, second meeting in September, what their board has to say, and maybe this committee drafts what each of these what every other member has to say to their committee, and give the verbiage to them, and then members that aren't necessarily tied directly to a board that we're talking to, but select board would be one of them. So the select board members could talk to the select board, but that would leave the moderator members could speak to the housing trust or take on that portion of this pie.
All right.
Just a suggestion, but.
All right. We have a hand up, and that's really kind of what my second bullet point is. And so maybe we should be doing that. All right. There's a hand up by Rick.
Yeah, Peter, I'm just a little bit confused. And so I was going to suggest that the initial contact be as simple as the chair of the CPC writing an email or a memo to all of the participating parties, notifying them that the CPC will be re-examining and redoing an outdated plan. And that we would appreciate something to this effect, that we would appreciate their input and their input for the staff, and that the liaisons and or a consultant that we would hire would be contacting them to get into the more specific natures of their sections of the plan for their input. And I think realistically, without everybody meeting during the month of August in the town, that's about all we can hope to achieve between now and September.
All right. So I've done that kind of, Gene, I've done that kind of drafting before on behalf of the committee. So I've been, I'm happy to do that.
Yeah,
That's,
good.
that may be the most efficient thing that we can do. And that accomplishes what we need to do in terms of the resolution, which is, we can keep the resolution as is. Someone might, Gene wants to talk to someone in the planning department and let them know this is coming, it's fine. I like the idea of giving her agency to actually be able to discuss this. And so that's fine. But if you're also telling me, Peter, what I think you should do is what you've kind of done in the past, write the email, give them the detailed email, tell them and send it out to let them know that this is coming and that we're going to be looking for seeking their input. Then I'm happy to do that.
Yeah, and Peter, the other thing too is I think you could also mention in there, this is going to also be part of a public process where we'll have a hearing to allow the public to provide input. All the things that you said to us, including that memorandum or email announcing that we're redoing the plan.
Okay.
And then take it from there. And I think that also would give us time, or at least staff time, to find a consultant so that perhaps in our August meeting, we could then deliberate and discuss the merits of a consultant and who that might be and what the scope of their work would be. But we've at least put the various interested parties on notice that we're redoing the plan for the first time in X number of years.
That's the
Okay.
key.
All right, that's an excellent idea. All right, so how about if I do this? I'll do the initial draft and I'll work with Jean on it. She can, give me her input. And then we can send it out. I don't want to, I think that's the best we can do in terms of not violating the open meeting law or working within the confines of the law.
Right.
Okay, Jean.
Yeah, and when it comes, the comments were made, and I think Rick and maybe Kristen also said the same thing, that many of us are on this Community Preservation Committee because of our service on other committees. And as far as interacting with those other boards and so forth, it should be the representative who does that at a regularly scheduled open meeting. Because there's really no other way to communicate.
Right, correct.
Respecting the open meeting law, Yeah.
Right, and so I thought that that's all right. That's what I was trying to address in my second bullet point. But I kind of made it a little awkward, which is like I was going to work with the representatives of CPC to work with it's like, look, you're members of the CPC, you're charged to go back to your committees that you are, the planning board, historic commission, etc., and inform them of this and discuss it with them. So that's I guess that kind of goes without saying. And you'll have that document that I write as your guide, and that will open up the discussion. Does that make sense to everybody? I'm sorry that
Yes.
I'm sorry I didn't have it clearly laid out when we got here, but we got there eventually. So because of everyone's participation. So thank you. Make sense?
Does.
Okay, good. All right. So I think that's it for our CPC plan. That was kind of my input on the WARI principles. And so let's go to our last bullet point item, which is plan for implementing the WARI principles. Do we have?
Peter,
Yes.
could I ask something? Were we
Sure.
supposed to vote on something just then?
Oh, yeah, that's right. Good point. Yes. Let's vote on that. We'll vote on the, we're going to vote on our resolution, which is our appointing the liaison, appointing McKnight and Pingatore basically as liaisons, if you will, on the CPA amendments of the CPA, and to communicate with staff. And then, of course, as previously stated on the record. So let's have a roll call vote. And we'll start with Barnes.
Aye.
Dorfman.
Aye.
Crocker. Gersel. Chris. All right. McKnight.
Aye.
Okay, Zimbo,
I,
okay, and the chair votes aye. Okay, thanks, Artie, for bringing that up. All right, so next item is our plan for, this is basically our Nuwari Principles update. I'm not sure how we left it. I know, I don't know. I don't have anything to add. I had, as I said, my perspective on it was to approach it through the lens of our amendments to the CPA plan on housing. Laura Dorfman.
I did a little research just in advance of this for this committee and also for the historical commission. I just went on a bunch of towns' websites and 2 city websites that are nearby and sort of similar to us. Not a lot of them have anything significant that shows up on their homepage about this. Wellesley does. They have a statement of diversity. Winchester has a human rights statement on the select board page. Lexington has appointed a chief diversity officer. My point being, you know, we're not, I don't think we should feel like we're behind in this. I think also, if we had the opportunity to have a member of Nuwari attend one of our meetings, that would really help us to figure out what our role might be in helping them. I think it's very hard for us to do that in a vacuum. And I also think it's a little weird to have different boards and commissions coming up with their own visions and statements. I don't know.
Okay,
That's my thought.
those are great thoughts. I don't, so does anyone want to weigh in on that? I like the idea of having someone come in here and talk to us a little bit more about Nuwari, but are we on our own? Does anybody, I don't know, I guess I've asked other members. I know, Jean, you know, you're working on the planning board in terms of, and you're one of the things you're approaching in terms of implementing those goals has to do with residential zoning issues, correct?
Yes, and we did adopt the goals.
So we did too, but did you have anything, were you just basically on your own at that point? You know, you kind of brainstormed and said, this is what I think we should do, or were you working with anyone else on the town, the executive side, the select board, any?
No, we weren't. The Nuwari Principles and their transmittal letter had been provided to us about a month before we had the meeting to adopt them. And we looked at them and considered which of them were really applicable to our work. And I forget, maybe, you know, discuss that a little bit at the meeting and then adopted the principles.
So, I mean, the best that I can offer, and because is what I've offered in terms of our CPA plan and focusing on our goals in terms of affordable housing and using our resources in our community housing bucket through that lens. I think that's a tangible goal. If we have other goals, I like your idea, Laura, of saying I think you're really saying, hey, we're kind of out here on our own. We have a piece of paper. We like the principles, we've adopted them, but we're just out on an island. It does seem a little odd to me. I guess we could, I have no problem with reaching back to Kate Fitzpatrick, because she directed us, she sent the document to us, and asked her, how is it, we have some concern. Does anyone else have this concern? I mean, I do think it's a little strange. So we're operating basically on our own. I mean, I'm not asking for us to have a consultant or anything, but if there's it's a little bit of a silo effect. Everybody is doing things on their own, and I don't know that that's efficient. And I think that it would be interesting to know what other committees are doing, because we could probably pivot from those committees and gain some knowledge and information from them as well. So, Jean?
Just a clarification. has this committee adopted the Nuwari?
Yes,
So now we're talking about next steps.
right,
Oh, okay. Thank
right.
you.
Rather than just, hey, we've adopted it, put it in the file cabinet, you know.
Mhm.
It's okay, we've adopted it. What are we gonna do to actually try and take some affirmative steps? So, Rick, you have your hand up.
I do, sir.
Okay, go ahead.
And my suggestion is to kind of blend this whole topic into your email that you'll be sending out to the respective departments,
Okay,
and ask that as they look at their sections of our plan, that they take into consideration the goals of the Nuwari project. Well, I don't know what you call it, the Nuwari mission statement, whatever it is. And they incorporate that into feedback for us to put in our plan. And so and the most obvious one would be the whole concept of affordable housing. That fits very neatly under that Nuwari plan. And I always thought that that was one way to address some of those needs. But there may be others with respect to, for example, with respect to Park and Rec. Or someone else may have another idea that is responsible from their own group. And if we ask them for that in your email that you send out to them, that they could then provide us with some input. And also the fact that we're incorporating the public into the comments on this, I am sure that we'll be getting all sorts of public input with respect to how best to incorporate that. And I think one of the problems that's starting to be addressed is the whole communications issue. And I think the need for continual improvement in communications, to outreach to people, things like that, is just part of the whole process, and it's part of the goals. And the more we allow for public participation, encourage public participation in the process, and I think we do that through the development of the new plan, and your, stating it up front in Jean's role that we've just defined. I think would more than satisfy what we need to do in the next steps.
good. And it would also, it's a great next step. That's a great idea. Anyone else, does anyone else want to weigh in on that? I think that's an excellent idea. I'm willing to do that. Does anyone else want to weigh in? Laura, or
I think that's a great idea, but I also feel like, to your earlier point, Peter, I think we need more guidance from the town. I mean, it's okay to issue a bulletin that says that, but there has to be something behind it, or it's just a piece of paper. So do they really want every committee to come up with their own set of plans? Are they going to look, or are there initiatives? Are they going to look at all of these and kind of try to get everybody to conform? Or was that sort of just an initial first step to say, we're on this, we hear you? I think there needs to be more feedback from the directive, where the directive came from.
I think we can include that in a line in the email. I think that's fine. Because we're gonna send it to Kate Fitzpatrick. She's gonna be one of the recipients of the email. Okay. All right, anyone else? Comments? Okay, so, all right, I'll do the initial draft. I'll send it to Jean for her review. We'll work on it and we'll get it out in the next week. Is that okay?
Mhm.
All right.
Yes.
Okay. All right. Thanks again, really, for your participation, which really helped me focus on how to address these two kind of, issues. And so thank you again. It was great. All right. Any other issues that we did, recent issues, emergency issues that have come up? Anything else? Okay. Hearing none, let's have our motion to adjourn. Okay. Okay.
Second.
Okay, so that's Artie. Did Artie Crocker make the motion?
I seconded. Rick made the motion, I second.
Okay, second. Okay, good. All right, so, all right, let's have our roll call vote. All right, Joe Barnes,
I,
Artie Crocker,
Aye.
Laura Dorfman,
Hi, sorry about the background noise.
okay, Chris Gersel,
Aye.
Jean McKnight,
Aye.
Rick Simbo,
Aye.
and the chair votes aye. Okay, we are adjourned. Thank you once again.
Kristen,
And,
Yeah,
so much.
okay, good night. Thanks for your input.
Good one. Thanks,
Good
Rick.
night, folks.
Thank you.
Night.
Thank-
And Jean, welcome aboard.
thanks
Oh,
for your help.
thank you.
Yes, hi, Jean.
Okay.